You're listening to the Home Staging Show podcast. I'm your host, Cindy Lin. This is a show where we talk about all things real estate, home staging, and selling your home to live and to sell. Welcome back to Season 7. This is Episode 4. Our show is brought to you by the Staging Assistant. It's more than an inventory system. Manage your leads, your proposals, your clients, and your stage houses on your desktop, tablet, or phone. With a Staging Assistant, you will know what you own, where it is, and when it's returning quickly and easily. Create your design and packing list from the comfort of your home so you can hit the ground running when you go into your warehouse. Created by stagers, specifically for stagers, is the only tool you need to manage your growing staging business. For more information, visit stagingassistant.com. Hey guys, welcome back to Season 7, Episode 4 of the Home Staging Show podcast. And I want to wish you a very, very happy new year for those of you who celebrate the Lunar New Year. I want to wish you a very happy and prosperous new year ahead. On today's show, I'm interviewing Amy Powers about the buyer's demographics and psychographics. This is an important step in researching what kind of buyers you should be targeting for your home sale. This kind of research will help you determine how you stage the house, what type of home furnishing and home accessories to choose in order to appeal to the buyer's lifestyles. So Amy Powers is the owner of Ask for Staging LLC, an Atlanta home staging company focusing on target demographic research to better understand what will attract the most likely buyers faster. Since 2007, Amy has successfully communicated the value of home staging to real estate agents and home sellers. She received her training through CSP, Certified Staging Professionals, and she has earned their International Masters in Real Estate Staging designation. Amy is also a RESA Pro, the highest designation in the industry. So Amy, how did you get started in home staging, and what was your background before becoming a stager?
I did some interior design. Actually, it was redesign before I knew it was called redesign. I would work with homeowners and help them use what they had in the home. And so in 2006, I started really falling in love with the idea of home staging. And thanks to Lisa Laporta and Clive Pierce, who inspired me to take it into a career mode, I took the idea of, I wouldn't have to work with homeowners and design it specifically for them. I can actually design it for buyers. And I have ADD, so my psychiatrist said it was a perfect fit for me because home staging is something different in each house. Mm-hmm. And when you get a home staging job, you finish it and you move on to the next project. So I just really fell in love with that concept.
I think that's really cool. And then, so I was curious, so what did Lisa Laporta and Clive Pierce did to inspire you? Well,
Clive just is a bunch of personality, as you may have seen on the show Designed to Sell. But Lisa was very practical, and I know the behind the scenes home staging on TV is very different than the reality of home staging as a career. But going in and seeing that almost instant gratification of things being changed and the difference that can be made right away and the impact it can have on a home to sell faster. That just was very intriguing.
Yeah, I think HGTV does play a very important part to kind of establish home staging as a legitimate marketing tactic for selling a home. Mm-hmm. Even though some of the pricing on the show was a bit unrealistic, but I think overall it really helps people to understand why it's so important.
I agree.
And so tell us a little bit about your staging business. What is your specialty?
Well, I am in Atlanta, Georgia, and I own a company called Ask for Staging, which is a great call to action. And what I specialize in is target demographic staging. And I think we're going to talk about that more.
We are, because I think you have a very specific approach to it, which I like. When I teach staging, I usually do also talk about demographic and psychographic. So I'm pretty excited to have you on the show today. So I know you specialize in target demographic research using psychographic information. Can you talk a little bit more about that? So how do you define demographics?
Well, a demographic is basically the type of person that would be most likely to buy a house. It's honing in on that buyer and for a particular property. So there's not a cookie cutter approach to staging in my business. And it actually works for any price point. I do luxury and I can work with investors. They all have very specific types of buyers. So you don't have to necessarily, you have to have an understanding of the type of buyers. And then the psychographic is their lifestyle, how they live in the home, or the area that why they're there, and the details like that. So having that information is very critical when it comes to staging properly.
So what is the difference between demographic and psychographic?
Okay, psychographic is the lifestyle, how they're going to live in the home. Demographic is the type of buyer. For example, it can be a millennial. It could be an older couple who may be ready to downsize and retire. Or it may be that family who has 2 kids who want to move in the home, quote unquote, their forever home, so that they can raise their family in that home. So different types of buyers for different houses. Psychographic is understanding that the millennial may be more trendy in how they live in their home. They are going to want certain amenities, certain maybe even colors might appeal to them, but more. With the older demographic, you have to understand they probably are more traditional in how they are living in their home. And the colors are going to be very different. They're probably going to be more neutral versus pops of color of a millennial. So that's how I use psychodemographics and target demographic in staging.
Okay. And then, so I understand that Atlanta has a very diverse market. So there's local and there's like hyper local as well. And mostly it's still in the seller's market as well. And it is a growing city, so it helps a lot with the real estate industry. Can you talk a bit about like the differences between local and versus hyper local communities? And then how would you go about to research what would be the demographic and psychographic for these markets?
So a local is you look at Atlanta and you say, who lives in Atlanta? But Atlanta has different segments, like there's Decatur, there's Buckhead, there's Sandy Springs. All those different areas within a local geographical area, I call those hyper local, because they're going to have certain people that come together. There's a lot of gay communities in Atlanta. So we're going to have areas where there's more likely to be, gay couples, and you want to definitely speak to who they are. And then there's going to be areas that are maybe better school systems where families go and want to live. So you're going to have more family-driven localism in that area. And then we have some artsy areas as well. And so just understanding the diversities of communities within a local environment is very important.
And that's a really great point. And then, so why are both so important? Can you have one but not the other?
I do not think you can have one without the other. That's a very good question. And so I don't think you can design a home based on a lifestyle if you don't know who the buyer is, right?
Right.
That doesn't make sense to me. And you can't design a home for a buyer without adding those elements that are going to attract them. To me, it's all about the accessories and having the right pieces of furniture. The accessories really define. Now, I also use props. Props is my favorite word because we think of staging. We have art, furniture, accessories, lighting, textiles, but a lot of times we leave off the word prop. And to me, a prop is actually what speaks to the psycho demographic. In a family home, at a coffee table, put a puzzle, little quirky elements like the skull candies on the coffee table versus, well, I use information that is available to me visually. I go through the neighborhood. I see the type of people living in the home. I understand this, if there's a good school system in the area. I also ask the agent. They're not allowed to disclose this information to buyers, but they can speak it to people on their team and to sellers who might be the most likely person. And I pay attention to the amenities and the retail businesses. I mentioned the art community that we have. And so if I'm in the area and I see those stores, I know exactly who is most likely to be the buyer. But also the census information can provide some really good feedback as well.
I think that's a great breakdown on how to research potential buyers, because I think a lot of times homeowners and real estate agents, they may not necessarily, newer real estate agents, they may not really understand how to target those demographics and psychographics. And I think it's really important to stage according to our target buyers, because that's really going to help to move the home faster once you're targeting the right type of buyers that's going to buy that house.
I agree.
And so why do you feel that the home will sell faster when you understand the potential buyer's demographic and psychographics?
Because we will connect with that buyer, we will emotionally connect with them faster. And real estate is sold on emotion.
Yeah, I agree. Real estate is sold on emotions. I think a lot of times people do make the buying decision based on the emotions. And so how can someone stage the appeal to the home buyers while applying these two principles? So how do you change your design choices based on demographics and psychographics of the target buyers?
Well, I change it to whatever the buyer is. And I do this by understanding the trends. You know, there's stuff out there. You can watch movies, and movies are really good, actually, way to do research, to be honest, because you can watch a movie with Morgan Freeman and you're going to have a more traditional approach because you're going to speak to an older audience. You can watch movies that are like, I have a 16-year-old, so I watch some teen movies so I can get an idea of what the younger trends are. So that's a great way. Also, going to your local mart. I live in Atlanta, so I go to America's Mart, walking through, learning, understanding the trends. Research is the most important way. And having that information, it makes it so much easier. I don't have to do as much research as I used to have to do because now I just know. It's just second nature to me.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think once you get but I think once you've been working for a while, you kind of get the look and feel of individual neighborhood and how they're different from each other. I only been to Atlanta once, but I get the sense that every neighborhood has a pretty distinctive style and personality. And same thing with San Francisco Bay Area, where I used to live. And I think it's so important to figure out who the potential buyers moving in are, because as stagers, that is going to help us more effectively to really merchandise the home to make sure that it's going to sell quicker. And I know you're very passionate about educating real estate agents about home staging. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions that agents have about home staging?
We are not there to make the house look pretty. Most agents, think that our job is to go in there and just make it look, like someone lives there. But we are actually a marketing tool. Our number one job is to control the buyer's eye, focusing on the positive things in the home, enhancing those, and reducing or minimizing the negatives and understanding what those negatives are. And so Melissa Morrow, I was just in a class yesterday. She and I were teaching at an event at the America's Mart. And she said that she had everyone repeat this like 5 or 6 times. And I really think it is a key phrase. And she said it's not copyrighted. Anyone can use it. So if you're listening, you may want to write this down. Staging creates a measurable and marketable change in the perceived value of the property. That speaks about things that are objective versus subjective. Pretty is subjective. Anyone can walk into a house and they'll see pretty based on their own experiences and what they like, their style. But when you start thinking objectively and you do things with intention, you eliminate the subjective and it becomes more of, this is speaking to me because I'm the most likely buyer for this house.
I think that's a really, really good point, because I think that's one of the things that the agents don't understand, or actually a lot of general consumers don't understand. They think that we're there to make the house look pretty, but that's actually not true. In addition to make the house look pretty, our job is actually making the house sell, by showcasing the floor plan, the architecture details, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that is a really good point. And so when the real estate agents have such misconception, like, how do you break that?
Well, I use education. Education is the number one tool to break that cycle of misinformation. So once I have an opportunity, I do continuing ed classes here in Metro Atlanta. And so I have statistics, I have a whole list of things that I teach agents on, and they walk away informed. They actually don't even know what they don't know, but they know it at the end of the class. And so I cannot express enough how valuable education is as a tool to change the mentality of our target audience, real estate agents.
Sure. Can you give a few examples where some of the things that you teach agents to help them change their mind about staging?
Well, the first thing is what staging is and what it is not. You know, we just talked about that. It is not making the house look pretty. It is a marketing tool. We are merchandising and showcasing properties. And then how to avoid the breach of contract. You know, agents have a fiduciary responsibility to help homes sell faster and for as much money as possible. And they need to understand that is our responsibility as well. So how can we work together to make sure we're meeting that fiduciary responsibility so that they're not leaving any options on the table that their clients are not aware of? And that will also protect them as well. And we also talk about the different staging contracts, things that could be in a contract with a stager, identifying how to work with a professional stager, the cost and value of home staging. We really want to kick in that return on investment factor. ROI is so important to have a working knowledge, a business speaking knowledge of how to communicate that to agents. And we also want to talk about leveraging when it comes to marketing, how professional photography and that internet presence is so critical. You can have the best staged home, but if the agent isn't taking professional photos or even changing the photos if they already had the listing to the professional staging, they're not being responsible, and they need to understand that they are costing their clients. I have some very practical tips, but the CE class does not teach agents how to stage. It just teaches them the value of staging, how to work with a professional on their team, and how to communicate staging properly to their clients.
I think it's still a little vague. So I'm going to be a little direct here. So let's say I'm a real estate agent and I come to you and say, hey, home staging sounds great, but I don't really see how it will work. So what can you tell me about how is it going to generate me more return on investment if I do decide to push my seller for staging?
Staging creates a measurable and marketable change in the perceived value of the property. We want the buyer to perceive the value of the property is worth more than what you're actually listing it for. So we're going to design it for that specific buyer to see that value. Staging creates value. There's nothing more to say to that.
How does staging create value? I don't understand.
Staging creates value with the use of furniture, art, and accessories and putting them in the right place.
That's great. So do you also show them visual on how home staging can change the way a home can look and feel? And then also obviously give them statistics as well.
Absolutely. We have a lot of before and afters. And we also have examples of where agents go in and try to stage themselves versus having a professional who actually understands the industry and does it on a regular basis. So there are so many statistics and visuals that I use in communicating to agents.
And then are generally agents pretty open to the idea of home staging, or do you sense the resistance as well? Or do you think it's a generational thing?
I think men are more open to staging because I think women agents tend to think they know what they're doing because they've decorated, you know, and most of the time, if you were to survey home stagers, I would imagine that their top percentage of their clients are men. So that's important for stagers to think about too when they're investing their time trying to work with agents. What's the most likely type of agent that's going to work with you? So knowing that men are all about money, they want, they know the language of money and business. So if you can speak to them on those languages, they're going to more than likely work with you. They don't like the fluff and the pretty talk.
So are you saying women don't understand the value of money?
No, you don't get me there, honey. No, but we're more women are more likely to talk about the pretty conversations, and there are definitely professionals out there who know how to talk money and business. But I'm just saying, if you're a stager and you want to use your time most effectively, that might be an area to start in. But yes, there are women that definitely know, girl, you're going to get me in trouble.
I just want to clarify and make sure we're on the same page, because I'm pretty sure that wasn't what you meant to say.
No, it is not. But I will say, if you were to ask stagers, the majority of their clients probably are men. And we did a survey yesterday in our class, and that was the result that we had.
I think there is a difference in communication style. So do you find that when you are, I think that's what you were trying to say originally.
I think that's
why I wanted to clarify, because on podcasts, it can get misunderstood very easily. We have had this happen before. So I think, so it sounds like, so how do you approach different types of communication style when you're working with real estate agents? Because I think some people definitely are more numbers people and some people are more visual people. So do you provide a wide variety of tools to basically help to convince them in terms of what staging can do for their business?
Yes. With certain communication styles, you find that pictures are going to be more of this. You have to speak that you're not spending money, but you're investing it and that you're going to get it back. So understanding the different communication styles, which is exactly what I was trying to say. Thanks for clarifying that. Is important, and body language can help you with that. Knowing how the agent markets their properties, having that conversation, building a relationship with that agent, you're going to know. And ask the question, what do you need from me to help you communicate staging to your clients or to understand staging? Ask for what you want is very important.
No, I love that. I think it's so true. I think in any business, you always have to ask what you want. And then also you need to figure out what client wants so that you can meet their expectations. So I think that is a really, really good point. And I know you teach quite a few things to agents about staging, for example, what staging is and what it's not. And I think the other thing that's real estate agents don't really think about is the liability issue. So I know you talk to them about how to avoid the risk of breach of duty and negligence claims by offering staging as an optional resource to their clients. The other thing, too, is how to protect their clients from litigation by knowing what questions to ask the stager. So what would be some of the questions to ask the stager to protect the home sellers from litigation?
Asking them, are you insured? What is your business insurance? What is your experience? You want to have someone, especially the higher end homes, you want to have someone that really understands exactly how to design that home to sell as fast and for as much money as possible. And, ask, what do you think my target demographic is? What does that mean? So those are some good questions to ask.
And then one of the things you also teach is how to use home staging to reduce disclosure issues. Can you talk a little bit about that? What do you mean by that?
Well, one thing staging should not do is hide things. So you want to make sure that you're enhancing, but you're eliminating negativities. So that's very important. And a lot of disclosure issues are going to be things where they need to replace the carpet, or there's the paint color. You're going to put money in for paint color or things like that. So A stager will come in and make those recommendations so that the money is being spent on this side of the transaction versus the other side of the transaction. And so there doesn't have to be those disclosure issues.
That's
A
a
room
really
that control that really on this side of the transaction before a buyer sees it. So this is before it hits market.
That's an incredibly great point. I think a lot of times the misconception that sellers and also agents have as well is to use staging to hide disclosure issues. I mean, I've gone on proposal appointments before where the potential client was like, well, can you hide that there's a hole in the floor? No, you can't. You also cannot use staging to reduce foundation issues. One time, this potential client had a very uneven floor in their basement, and he asked me to use staging to hide that. But that's something that you have to disclose legally with your buyers. Otherwise, you can actually get into trouble on the legal side.
Right. Absolutely.
And then what are some of the standard staging contract clauses that real estate agents and homeowners should expect?
That the stager controls the design choices. That's the number one that they are not aware of. And it can be surprising, but it's because they come from a mentality of this is their home and this is how they're used to living in it. So the communication with the seller and the agent is, we're not designing the home for you to buy. We're designing it for a different type of buyer. You've lived in this house for 20 years. When you moved here, you were younger, and now you have aged and seasoned in this house and grown, and you have all your family experiences, but your buyer doesn't have those experiences. So that's an important one. And understanding cancellations or rescheduling, making sure the house is clean when the stager shows up, the how to pay, types of payments accepted, when to pay, all those things are very important things for stagers, for actually agents and sellers to understand that a stager will have in their contract.
That's great. And then, so how does the entire pre-market staging process that's going to benefit the client and also secure their relationship as a true advocate for their best interest?
Can you restate that question?
Yeah. So one of the things I know you teach as agent is how the entire pre-market staging process is going to benefit the sellers and also secure the agent's relationship as a true advocate for their best interest. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Why is that such a benefit for real estate agents to really push for home staging for their clients?
Well, the relationships I build with agents in my area, the majority of the time, they won't even work with a client unless they're willing to use staging, because they know that staging is their number one marketing tool. Making sure the house is properly designed and merchandised to sell to the most likely buyer is going to help them fulfill their contract with their client. So it's important that agents understand that we are there to help them. We will help them make money faster. With that healthy relationship and that partnership with a stager and that understanding, having those questions with that agent and you asking questions and them asking questions about what y'all can expect from each other is very important when working with agents so that they can communicate that in a very confident way to their clients. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really important to have that strong relationship with your clients, because for our business as well, I've noticed the top producer that I work with, they stage every single listing. Like there's no question about it. If their client's really reluctant to go with staging, the top producer will actually really push for it. They will definitely try to convince the client. I mean, they can't force a client, but they will do their best to convince the client to stage because they know that it's going to help them sell faster, if not for more money.
And the key words that you said were that agent is a top agent. You don't become a top agent by leaving all your options on the table and by putting aside a very obvious marketing tool. How the pictures look online is what will get people in the door.
That's very true. And so how do you feel about agents doing their own staging?
Well, I think selling real estate alone is difficult. I've actually been trying to get my real estate license here in
Mm.
Georgia. I don't have time to even take the classes, so I can't imagine having the time to sell real estate on top of staging, and doing it right as well. So I feel like they're more likely to sacrifice something for their clients, for themselves, for their quality of life. And then, that's not going to make them look good in the long run. Staging, all the people out there know staging is not glamorous. And sometimes people think it is. It is hard work. How are your knees doing? Mine hurt a lot after a good staging job. So, having that understanding is very important, but there are some agents that do it right. And a lot of the agents I know that do it well actually started out as stagers. So they understand and do it. But my recommendation for a real estate agent to keep themselves elevated and to look like the most professional they can, that they have a team, that they have a professional stager on their team. So I recommend that they not do it themselves. So that's my opinion.
I really agree with that as well. I mean, the top producers I know and met and have worked with, they all partner with a stager or they have in-house stager. Nobody does staging themselves and sell real estate, because when you're operating at a very high level, a lot of top producer, at least in Bay Area, from what I've seen, they're assistant, half assistants. So there's no way they have time to actually stage a listing themselves. They have to find stagers that knows how to target the demographic and psychographics through staging. They need to be able to work with stagers as a partner on the same level, and then to really convey what needs to be done to get the house sold.
Exactly.
And so what recommendations do you have if the sellers choose to stage their homes themselves?
This may make you laugh, but keep my number. I would not even stage my own home without a consultation from another stager, because you get blinded to everything that you're just used to walking by. There's things that you just can't see, like a professional who's looking at it from a different perspective can come in and look at it. There's just something very simple, organic to me about letting a pro come in who understands that attention to detail than having someone living in the home may very well miss.
True. But if the homeowner doesn't have a choice, for example, they live in an area where there are no easy access to stagers, which actually happened to two of the sellers we interview on the show. So what would your advice be?
So they don't have access to stagers? Is that what you said at all?
Yeah. So one of the sellers, for example, the closest stager, it lives an hour and a half away.
Well, there are some stagers that offer services where they can take pictures and send them in. That's an option. But if that is not viable either, really take pictures of the house. Take pictures from all angles. Put the pictures on your computer and think, how is a buyer going to see this? Have a friend come over and say, hey, look at these pictures. Tell me, how does this make you feel? Have the real estate agent look at the pictures and just go through them and pay attention to those details. Look at everything from the floor to the walls to the ceilings to the countertops. Everything has to be shown like it's not like the buyers are the first ones in the house. Has to feel like a model home. Use your resources, ask questions from people around you, and photography is very important. How it looks on your computer is how a buyer is going to see it.
That's very true. That's one of the things that I really push for, is for actually sellers to take photographs of their own home and then imagine how that would look on the internet, because that's where most people shop for houses now. And then once they feel like they like it, they go to the open house.
Exactly.
And so if the agents are on board with staging, but the homeowners are still skeptical, like what are some of the things that you would do to communicate the value that you bring to the table?
Well, we just talk about return on investment and how staging creates value. That's very important. It is all about how they're going to benefit. And when I'm walking through a house talking to a homeowner, and if they haven't hired me, I'll throw in a couple little things so that they can understand that I'm an expert and I'm actually really there to help them. Things like what I said earlier about how taking control of the money and the decisions on this side of the transaction. When you're telling that to a guy, they get it. Oh yeah, I don't want to spend any more than I have to, and I certainly don't want to put $5,000 as a trade in for paint or carpet when I can spend $1,200 on carpet right now. So talking money and letting them understand that it is about the buyer, it can change a conversation rapidly.
That is a great point. I mean, it is at the end of the day all about the buyers. A lot of times sellers complain, "Oh, I don't like this, I don't like that." But I think it's our job to remind them that we are doing this for the buyers, not for them. We're doing this so that the sellers can sell their house and then sell it to the buyers.
That's right.
And so what recommendations do you have for new stagers about working with real estate agents?
New stagers have so much enthusiasm. They assume that no one's going to say no to them and that everyone's going to fall in love, because I've been there. Like, there's no way anyone's going to say no to me because I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to help them make money. But the truth is that there are different types of real estate agents. And there's buyer's agents and seller's agents. Honing in on the seller's agents, honing in on those top producers who understand and have more listings. You want to make sure your agent is not an agent that does 3 or 4 listings per year, but they actually do maybe that per month, if not more. And if you can't get to that top producer, maybe someone on their team. Look who's on their team, the seller agents versus the buyer's agents on that team, and build relationships. It is so critical. Real estate is all about referrals, and referrals are about relationships. The R&R of real estate is referral and relationships. So time is money. So make sure your time is invested in the right areas, and get in there and educate. Learn as much as you can at how to talk staging without the pretty talk, and become the expert in your area. So that's my suggestion to a new stager.
I love the R&R. I've never heard that before, but I'm going to steal that. That is amazing.
Awesome. I actually just invented it.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. That should be your Amy's R&R. I mean, that's so important because it's all about relationship and referrals. Studies have shown it's so much cheaper to, keep working with your existing clients and build that relationship than acquire new clients. So, yeah. But a lot of times, most of us focus our marketing on getting new clients, and we forgot the old clients that we have.
And it's quality versus quantity as well. So if you have an agent that's doing 4 or 5 listings per month that you're taking your time to spend a relationship with, versus 4 or 5 agents that have 1 per month or every couple of months, is it a good use of your time, right? So quantity is not as important as quality of the relationship.
I know, exactly. And I know you have a new venture, which is the Stagers Biz Book Club. What are you reading right now?
Well, the Stagers Biz Book Club is just something I came up with spontaneously, just in a group for new stagers that we were talking about. And I said, hey, I would love to read this book, but who wants to read a book by themselves? It's not as fun. And when you are in the same industry and you're reading a book that, like, for example, our first book is Profit First by Michael Alsvitz, if I said that correctly. And so having a book called Profit First and talking about how you can implement that with other stagers, I find that very exciting, because if I were to read it on my own, I have to process it on my own. And maybe I'm tired that day and I'm not able to pull in as many ideas as I would like to. But having someone else who may be in a different city, having different experiences, they might trigger a thought in my head. Oh my goodness, that's a great idea. I've never even thought of that. So I think that's the value of a book club is taking a book and having different points of views, look at it and see it, and then sharing those and then growing your own perspective. Whether you agree with it or not, just learning how other people think, to me, is I just enjoy that. And so we just started our first book. We're going to have discussion groups. We have over 125 people in the group. So we've divided the discussion groups up into 3 or 4 different conference calls towards the end of the month. And if you go to Facebook, to the Stagers Biz Book Club, you can join that and get more information about the different, the schedule and the books that we're going to be looking at. Thanks for asking.
Great. No, I think that's awesome. I think that's why it's so important to have these kind of online resources. Like a lot of stagers are always looking for mentorship, especially new stagers. And I think it's really important for them to find these resources, on Facebook.
Yes.
And just connect with other people. Because when I first started in the business, we didn't really have there was no Facebook, or there was, but it was in its infancy. So, we found a lot of stagers. We found each other on Active Ring, and when I was a very new stager, I got some really great advices on how to grow and how to approach clients, and also connecting with real estate agents as well. Even though they're not real estate agents that work in my town, but it's still, they gave me expertise. They taught me how to deal with clients, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's really, really important to connect with people in the real estate industry. You never know where the referral is going to come from. I networked with some woman who was a virtual assistant back then for real estate agents, and she was 3 hours away, and she was able to refer me to a client locally in my town. So you just never know where the referral can come from, and you can learn so much from not every other person, from everyone else in the real estate industry. You can learn a lot from the inspector, for example. It's really important for real estate professionals, especially if you're new in the industry, to learn how other people in the real estate work, especially if you have very direct relationships. If you're a stager, obviously you need to know how real estate agent works, what's really important to them, what are their pain points. But other people, estate lawyers, they can be really good referral sources.
Absolutely.
Even your painter. Painter is really the first people who get into the door. So you just never know.
Well, and it's all about influence. I was talking yesterday to stagers, as I mentioned earlier, and my definition of being a leader is having influence over others. And if you have those relationships with a good closing attorney, a mortgage broker, the home inspector, the title clerk, real estate agents, anyone that has influence over others who might be buying and selling, you have an opportunity to be a leader in that network by influencing them and communicating to them the value of staging. So our target demographic, we always think is number 1, real estate agents, and then number 2, sellers. But don't lose sight of investors, builders, and all those other real estate industry professionals that you can influence.
Yeah, I think that is so true. That's why networking is so important. You have to constantly go out and meet new people. And I know it's very scary too. Especially if you're new in the business, you're new in the industry, and you're going to walk into a very crowded room where everybody seems to know each other and you know no one. So, but you have to be brave and then just go out there and talk to people.
And so you mentioned how you met the virtual assistant, and you mentioned that they gave you a referral, but that referral was triggered because of your relationship, right? The R&R. Mm-hmm. So that's how you do it. You don't have to go in and start selling your services when you're in a room like that. Sell yourself. Be yourself. Talk about who you are, what's important to you. You can talk about staging, but they want to know who you are before they know what you're going to try and sell them. And that is, you're not going to propose to them on the first date. You're going to woo them. And just remember that this is not, you're not trying to set a wedding date. You're trying to build a relationship.
I think that is a really good point. I think one of the things that I think a lot of times people feel like, oh, I have to do X, Y, Z to get this result. But actually, no, there are many different ways for you to meet new people, to generate business. But at the end of the day, this is still a people business. Like the relationship needs to be there. And that's why, like you said, R&R, that is so important, because without a relationship, people will not book you. They will not refer you to their clients. And that's why it's so important to be genuine and sincere, and to be at a position where you'll be of service. I think if you are, I don't know, I'm kind of a firm believer that you attract the type of people who respond to your energy. And so if you constantly put out good energy, you're going to attract good clients. So that's why I feel like it's really, really important to put yourself out there, be brave, and then just start networking, putting your brand out there, putting your work out there, which is very, very important. Make sure that you have a really good portfolio. And like you said, professional photography is key, not only for staging houses, but also staging your own website if you're a new stager.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so what are some of the key takeaways that you have found so far when you're reading Profit First?
Just the reminder that what you prioritize and what is important to you is what you're going to get. What you put into the energy and effort isn't for nothing. And I haven't finished reading the book, so I have no aha moment to but I have to say, I love Mike's enthusiasm and his desire to want to help people prosper. And for stagers, I know it took me several years to get at a good place for profit. And if I had read this book, it would not have taken as long.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting thing, and I'm surprised no one else thought of this and then wrote a book about it first, is to really put your profit first. Because I think most people put your profit last. They always put expenses first. And I think it's actually a simple but very revolutionary way of thinking about your finances. And to have different buckets for different things, I think is an ingenious idea. I was surprised that nobody taught about this earlier.
Well, I'm glad that we can do it now. So that's pretty cool.
And so I have one last question for you tonight. What is your one top tip to sell home faster? Obviously, other than home staging.
Well, yes, staging obviously is going to be the number one tip. But outside of that is use a professional photographer. It doesn't matter how great a house looks on the inside if no one on the outside has a chance to see it. So that's my number one tip.
That's awesome. And then let me just check audience questions really quick. So Melinda asked to see if you can repeat the statement again. I think it's a statement with Melissa Merrill.
Okay, let me see. I wrote that down so I wouldn't say it wrong. Make sure I don't. Okay, so it's staging creates a measurable, marketable change in the perceived value of the property. That's
great. That is a fantastic quote. And I think the rest people are talking about having some sound issue on the listening end. So just so you know, you guys, this is a podcast recording. So we're going live right now, but it is recorded and you will get a link when the episode goes live so you can listen to it again. Cool. So I guess there's no more audience questions. So I want to thank you so much for being on the show today on a Friday. And I know you have a lot going on. So I really, really appreciate you being here. And being so patient with my crazy schedule. I think we rescheduled the call like 3 times.
Well, it was my pleasure, Cindy. It was great connecting with you, and I appreciate your willingness to talk to me and to ask such really good questions. I recommend this podcast because Cindy does ask some really good questions.
Thank you. And I am a pusher.
I like it. Push. I was getting a little nervous there for a minute.
No, but the thing is, sometimes we have had that in the past where people misunderstood what the guest said and it show up in our review. And so I just want to make sure we clarify it, because I think with podcasts, sometimes it's difficult. And if people feel that they heard something bad or trigger something, they tend to stop listening at that point. So I think it's important to clarify what you meant, because I know that wasn't what you meant at all. And so I just want to make sure everyone is like, oh, I don't think, what is Amy talking about, kind of thing.
Well, just for the listeners to know, when you're being interviewed and you feel like you have like 1 second to think of an answer, it is hard because how you answer it, there's so much going on inside the head. It may come out different. And then how an audience listens to and hears it is all based on their experiences and how they, hear things as well. So clarification is always important. And I hope that everything I said came across properly. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask Cindy to ask me or ask me directly. I'm more than happy to clarify.
Yeah, Amy, you are a great resource, an amazing wealth of information. I love the R&R thing tonight. Oh my God, that was like the best thing ever. It's just like really succinctly to talk about client relationships. I think especially I think a lot of new stagers do struggle with. They don't know how to approach clients. I mean, one of the biggest thing that kind of pushback that I get from new stager is that I hate that on the podcast, you guys always talk about you need to hire experienced stagers for home sellers, because it's really hard for new stagers because they haven't built up that experience yet. But the thing is that, it's important when you're new, you are very aggressively building portfolio. But that doesn't mean that you're cutting prices to build your portfolio. You can build your portfolio at home, actually. You can stage your own house. You can take beautiful professional photograph. Nobody's going to know that is your own house unless you tell them. You can stage your cousin's house, your friend's house. You can build portfolio that way, and then use this portfolio to sell yourself without discounting yourself, without putting yourself down and decreasing your own value. So I think it's really, really important to differentiate. I mean, with experience, obviously, the more doing, the more handling with clients, you're going to learn how to deal with clients throughout time. But in terms of skill set on how to stage houses, you can build a portfolio on your own, in your own house, in your friend's house, whatever, or even just redo your coffee table. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Like, you don't have to rent a hotel room and redo the entire room. You can actually restyle a table, like a console table in your house, take pictures before and after. You can restyle your kitchen counter. You can do very small things like redoing your bed, mix up the nightstands, and just take those photos, show what you can do. And that's how you're going to start booking jobs.
Or do a live feed on how to stage a bed,
Yes.
Something like that, or a blog on how to properly stage a bed. And can I speak about that? I never, ever thought that I was not experienced. Experience is a state of mind. And I know people who have been in the industry for years who I can look at the work and I don't think they know how to stage. So time on job does not equal experience. Experience is based on how you apply what you know effectively, in my opinion. That's my personal opinion. So I love the phrase, fake it till you make it. People didn't have to know that I had done very little when I first started. I knew how to talk to them. I knew how to educate them. And that is what makes you an expert. Don't ever let them think that you're not an expert. If you have confidence in yourself and you can communicate what needs to be said effectively, you are an expert. Expert means you have experience, and fake it till you make it.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a confidence thing. I think if you have conversation with clients and you feel very hesitant, you're going to sound very hesitant. And that's why I'm a big pusher for scripts, especially for our courses. I make my students write out the scripts that they have to correspond with the clients with, because clients are always going to ask the same thing. Can I get a discount? I don't like this chair. Can you change it without, charging me more money? Can you give me an itemized bill? Or, like, my daughter-in-law is doing staging now. Like, can you just show her your contract? Those kind of things is going to come up in your staging career. And the best way to learn how to deal with it is to write everything you want to say down, and then filter it to make sure it sounds very professional. And then memorize your script that so much that it sounds very natural when it just come out. And that's why I think it's really, really just really important to not be afraid, because I mean, we can't predict everything that's going to happen in life, let alone in the business. So I think it's just really important to go out there and then put yourself out there and start working.
I agree.
Yeah. So thank you so much again for tonight. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for everyone being on the call. I know maybe for some of you, the call was coming in and out, but not to worry. It is recorded. So we're going to play it on the podcast when it goes live.
Well, thank you, Cindy.
Yeah, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Bye.
Okay, bye. So that's it for the show. Thank you so much for listening. You want to help and support the show, there are 3 ways to do so. You can leave a review and rating on iTunes. You can share the show on social media, or you can donate to support the hosting costs for the website and the podcast. You can now make a donation through the show notes on the sidebar of our website. So thanks so much again for listening. Have a wonderful week and happy staging. And don't forget to check out our show sponsor. Our show is brought to you by the Staging Assistant. It's more than an inventory system. Manage your leads, your proposals, your clients, and your stage houses on your desktop, tablet, or phone. With the Staging Assistant, you will know what you own, where it is, and when it's returning quickly and easily. Create your design and packing list from the comfort of your home so you can hit the ground running when you go into your warehouse. Created by stagers, specifically for stagers, is the only tool you need to manage your growing staging business. For more information, visit stagingassistant.com.